Hi, everybody. It's Allison Williams here, your host of the Crushing Chaos with Law Firm Mentor podcast. Law Firm Mentor is a business coaching service for solo and small law firm attorneys. We help you to grow your revenues, crush chaos in business, and make more money. Hi, everybody. It's Allison Williams here, your Law Firm Mentor, and welcome to another episode of the Crushing Chaos with Law Firm Mentor podcast, where today we're going to talk about in-house marketing team. So for a lot of you, you're at the stage of growth in your law firm where you know that marketing is critically important. You may have even gotten to the point where you've already outsourced your marketing to a digital marketing company, or maybe you've invested in some social media marketing, but you're probably experiencing the frustration that comes with feeling like you finally got something off your plate, but yet the marketing company keeps asking you for things that put more onto your plate than you expected to have to deal with at this stage, right? And it's a normal progression in the growth of a business that as you start to take things off of your plate, that there are going to be certain attributes, certain skills, certain things that you're going to be doing that are not within your wheelhouse, but you're not yet at the place where you can truly outsource 100% of the job and ultimately get the result that you want. And that friction is typically where we start to see lawyers fall into decline, right? You start to develop enough growth and you have enough money that you're not in struggle mode anymore. You're not in hustle mode anymore. But what you're finding is every time you outsource your marketing to a company, you start to feel the frustration of, how am I going to find the time now to create the content that they need, to be able to get the information that's required over to them fast enough, to be able to proof the copy, right? All of those logistical things that feel very administrative, they feel very secretarial, but they're critically important to making sure that your brand is represented as you want on social media, on the website, and of course out on the internet streets. So how do we help you with that? Well, the one thing that I want to talk to you about today is in-house marketing team and what that has to look like. Now, for a solo or small law firm attorney, you might be thinking, in-house marketing team, that sounds expensive. I don't know if I can afford that just yet. But I want to put your mind at ease. We're not talking about going out and hiring someone who is a six-figure earner who has a master's degree or an MBA with a focus in marketing, right? We're not talking about even getting the highest level of skill. That at some point in time would be appropriate depending on the nature and complexity of your business. But for right now, we're just talking about your general marketing assistant. This can be someone who is a virtual team member. I know a lot of companies are doing virtual staffing overseas, but whether that person is in the United States, overseas, in-house, or virtual, ultimately you want to consider having someone on your team devote their time and attention to marketing. So I want to give you today 3 characteristics that will justify your making this investment in your business and that it is going to likely result for you in a very significant return on that investment. Okay, so the first thing we have to think about is when you are looking for a marketing assistant, when you're considering bringing that role in-house, no matter how great the digital marketing company is that you are working with, ultimately it will be best for you if they, as the experts, have someone who is eyes and ears in your company. Okay. They require responsiveness. Okay. So that ultimately is reason number 1 why you really need to have someone in-house. When you're talking about a company that is creating content for you, one of the challenges that law firms will experience, and really any business will experience in getting that growth, that scale, is having consistent information going out onto the internet so that ultimately the digital marketing company can play the algorithm, okay? Now, when I say play the algorithm, I don't mean doing anything nefarious. I just mean that they need to be able to get information out in a timely manner in a way that the algorithm is going to look favorably upon that information and use it to get you the eyes on your screens that are necessary for growth, okay? And so if you don't have consistent content going out, what tends to happen is the marketing company does all that they can on their side. They create amazing graphics. They build out your landing pages. They create funnels for you, right? All of the things that are designed to put people in to your marketing orbit so that they can know that you're the one to help them with whatever their legal problem is. But then on your end, after they've built it all, you're not available to review it. You're not available to read the copy to make sure it reads the way that you want, that it sounds like you, right? You're not checking to make sure that the tech side on your end is built out so that when leads are going to a landing page that is designed to connect to your telephone number, that it actually calls your telephone number, right? You're not doing what's required of you to make sure that ultimately the marketing company can say, yeah, this is ready to go, locked and loaded, press send, right? So that's a real challenge, because if you're not available for that, then it tends to slow down the traction. And traction is really important in marketing, not just because the marketing company is going to be A/B testing things. They're going to be telling you how responsive your marketplace is to your advertising messages. And if you put things out there and they can't test it timely, given the rate at which things are changing nowadays, it may be stale by the time they actually get to launch your marketing initiative. The second reason why it's really valuable to have someone in-house is that you want to have someone on your team who's doing the research about where to go with marketing. As we know, there are 5,000 different places you can put marketing out there so that people will ultimately be attracted to your law firm. Right. We know that there are many multitudes of social media platforms. We know that there are different ways on different websites where you can draw attention to your site, even if someone is not going to your site, they're going to a related service site. Right. We also know that what is going to be effective on one platform with one target demographic is very different than what would be effective on another platform. Right. So you can't just take what you wrote on Facebook and copy it onto some type of graphic and post it on TikTok, right? They're completely different platforms. They have different target audiences. They have different technology. They are designed to accomplish different things. The attention span needed to watch a 30-second TikTok different than to watch a 5-minute video that's posted into a post on Facebook. So you want to have someone who doesn't just understand the logistics of where data goes and how to alter it, but you want to have someone who is always looking for the next opportunity for your business to expand its marketing reach. And as we talk about a lot here, being able to rinse and repeat your marketing. You don't want to have someone go to one place and then ultimately find a piece of marketing and it just kind of dies on the vine at that point, right? You want to send people from one place to another, and you want them to be surrounded in your marketplace with your marketing messages. Now, the way that's often thought of to be done is through retargeting, right? Somebody gets a message on one platform, gets over to your website, drops a cookie, and then by virtue of that, you can follow them, if you will, to the next location with some type of advertising message, right? So we know that retargeting works, and it tends to be far less expensive than the initial a capture of an audience. But once you do that, you still have to have someone in-house to be able to say, yes, from what we know, this marketing is really working compared to another marketing platform. And sometimes you're going to have one overarching company that can do that for you. But a lot of times you're using one vendor for reputation marketing. You're using someone else for your SEO and your website. You're using someone else for your social media marketing. You might be using someone else for print media, right? There's a lot of different things that you can be doing. And it's almost impossible to get a one-stop shop where someone or some entity is doing it all. So you want to have someone in-house that's looking out over the metrics of all of those different platforms so that you can try and test and see what works best for your company based on what you are spending ultimately on advertising and marketing. Okay, third reason why it's really, really important for you to have someone in-house, and that is the logistics. Okay, logistics of marketing essentially are things such as checking copy, right? Looking at email templates, making sure that there's cohesion across the different ways that you're communicating. If you're saying one thing when you get on stage and then someone starts to get emails that have a very different voice, that have very different messages, that have very different aims, that speak in a different cadence, there's going to be somewhat of a disconnect. Now, sometimes that disconnect can be great because if you deliver a message in a way that's broad and maybe very eloquent in one place, and then it's very punchy and fun in another place, but it's the same message, that type of disconnect might say to a person that you're multifaceted and that you can ultimately reach a person no matter what way in which they like to consume media. But there are other times where the disconnect can be jarring enough that a person sees inconsistency, and that breeds a lack of trust, right? It's almost like there's some cognitive dissonance that forms where, okay, I'm seeing John, the suited up lawyer who's speaking very powerfully about personal injury from the stage. And then I start getting drips of emails because I went to their Facebook page. And those drips of emails are someone talking in street slang and maybe using profanity and having a very edgy sort of feel. And I don't get the sense that John, the very polished personal injury attorney, is the same as his partner, Steve, in their company where he's talking slang, right? So there can be a disconnect. And it's really important that one person on your team is looking at that in terms of what you're putting out. Now, this doesn't mean that if you have different people in your company marketing, that you all have to copy and paste each other's style, right? We do want you to be authentic in your marketing. But even as you are working toward authenticity, your goal is to make sure that there is consistency of your message, and that when you are communicating in different places, that data, if it is multi-purpose, right? If you're cross-marketing what you put on what you say in a public speaking engagement to what you put in your newsletter or on your blog, you want to make sure that what people are consuming says we say the same thing, even if we say it in different ways, because we are about this value, right? Whatever the value is, right? Whatever the reason is that you became the type of attorney that you became, you want that to come through in the different places that you're marketing. So it's really valuable to have someone in-house. Now, I know for a lot of people, again, as I said at the beginning, the idea of bringing someone in-house to facilitate marketing may be kind of scary. It may be one of those things that you think, gosh, that is another salary. Do I really need to have that person? Do I really need to have someone who is kind of eyes and ears on our marketing here? Can't I just outsource it to a company? But as I said before, not every company is going to be expert at everything. Typically, even if you go to a full service agency, there are going to be some things that they're really good at, right? Some companies are really, really expert at search engine optimization. They understand the Google algorithm. They understand the updates. They understand where you need to put messaging and how important is your local office and what types of attributes are going to be more significant than others, right? So if you talk to a series of marketing companies, you're going to hear things like your NAP is really important, right? Your name, address, phone number. That needs to be consistent across the platforms. Everybody pretty much gets that, right? But then when you start getting into the nuances, peeling back the layers of different strategies, you're going to find that some companies are more adept at SEO than others. And when you go to one company and they seem to know the general idea of how to get your self-traction in SEO, they might not necessarily be the people you want to use for pay-per-click marketing, right? Because they might know the long-term strategy. They might have the branding idea elements there. They might know how to be able to increase your ranking on Google or Bing or Yahoo or whatever search engine you're focusing on. Of course, most of us are going to focus on Google. It's the largest. But then next is YouTube. It's the second largest, right? So they might know what to do there, but they might not know how to get you short-term traction on pay-per-click. They might not know what needs to go on a landing page, what types of graphics are most effective, where you're going to get the most traction in terms of platform based on who your audience is. And you really need someone who is spending their time, their energy, their focus there, not necessarily someone who's dabbling in it the way that they might be dabbling or focused in other areas. We say this a lot. You know, I'm a family lawyer by trade, and we were just having, I'm in lovely New Jersey, and I'm in a Facebook group of New Jersey family lawyers. And we were just talking about kind of the challenge that we find when people dabble in family law, right? Because a lot of lawyers, when they are light on funds, they say, oh, I just got to get some low-hanging fruit. Well, anyone can handle family law, right? We're just arguing about the family. That's not that hard. And people demean our practice. Won't even go into my little affront about that. But people think it's easy. So they think, all right, well, I'll try and test and I'll do a little divorce here or a little child support matter there. And the next thing you know, the client comes to us after someone who dabbled in it, tried and tested and threw some words together, and there's no cohesion. There's a whole bunch of holes in the contract. Certain issues were never discussed or addressed. There's a conflict in what's argued, not because the lawyer wasn't a smart lawyer, but because they didn't know the nuances that are particularly important when you're talking about people's families and their structures and their schedules and their finances. And when we have to come in and fix that after the fact, there's almost always a challenge because someone has gotten the benefit of this poorly drafted contract that we now have to not only convince the court should be fixed, even though it might have been consented to, but we have to impress upon our client how important it is to spend the money to get it right the second time. And that's really the same thing that you experience in marketing, right? There are experts in certain areas of marketing and there are dabblers. So you really want to make sure that when you choose a professional to do something, that they have the level of expertise to make it really effective for you, which brings it back to the in-house marketing person. Your in-house marketing person doesn't have to be a marketing whiz-kid, right? At some point, you might want to bring in a marketing director. But just at the beginning, you want to make sure that what you're getting in return based on who is delivering the service is something that is consistent with what your goals are. And if you don't outline that, if the company doesn't ask you, and if you don't have someone who's checking to make sure that your numbers are being hit, what you're typically going to find is that really, really good salespeople are serving on the front lines to keep you happy and keep you paying them, but they're ultimately not delivering what you need. All right, everyone. I'm Allison Williams, your law firm mentor. You've been listening to another episode of the Crushing Chaos with Law Firm Mentor podcast. I'll see you on our next episode. Thank you for tuning in to the Crushing Chaos with Law Firm Mentor podcast. To learn more about today's show and take advantage of the resources mentioned, check out our show notes. And if you enjoyed today's episode, take a moment to follow the podcast wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a rating and review. This helps us to reach even more law firm owners